So today we're going to talk about Expo 58. People probably familiar with it, but just in case you're not, Brussels. It was the first post-World War II World's Fair. Uh, about 1955 or so, when they started planning Expo 55, it had been less than a year, a decade rather, since the World War II had ended. And you can imagine, I was thinking today as I was getting ready, I wonder who the first tourist was that after World War II said, hey, I'm going to go book a flight to go see Notre Dame or go see whatever. But by 1955, there were huge areas of Europe that were still in ruins. Matter of fact, into the 60s, there were still huge areas of it, particularly in places like Berlin. So just like most other World's Fairs, it was started by a group of businessmen that thought it would be a good idea to attract interest to their area, both for tourism, but more importantly for trying to get businesses to come there and to start doing trade again. You can imagine how many factories and everything else have been destroyed during the time of the war. Well, finally, a lot of the businesses were back in shape and they were able to start doing business, and they were trying to get people to invest in their country. Let me just get out a mail here so it doesn't keep dinging me. So Expo 58 was a real endeavor for people to put it together because again, where the average American, for example, you're going to go to Brussels or their hotels to stay at. It wasn't just Americans. Where you're going to get people to come from Italy to Brussels. So Brussels really took a real challenge to show people that we've been working at this for 10 years. We're in shape to hold it. And it turned out to be a fairly successful expo. It was small by, let's say New York standards, but it was a pretty one in that, it was an area that had a lot of trees and vegetation. And as a matter of fact, in some of the pictures I have, you see families sitting at picnic tables and, eating under the trees. And it just looks like a nice day out. What's interesting is that the architecture of the pavilions, you had some that looked very traditional, like the Thailand pavilion. We're going to see would have looked right at home as the Thailand pavilion at the 64 World's Fair. But they also went for a bunch of really stark, new, modern architecture. And this is at the time of mid-century modern. And you can definitely see the influences of that in a number of the buildings. So the pictures we're going to look at today are, again, from my never-ending queue of ones that have not been done. Matter of fact, I was looking at the dates on them. I said, oh my God, I scanned some of these things 18 years ago and I still haven't gotten to it. And part of the trouble is I wanted to use them for a book, but my publisher only wants to do US based or North American based fairs. And one of the big problems is the people that own the Atomium, the theme structure for it, are absolute nuts about going after people using pictures of it in books or magazines or anything else. And there's a big argument about this fair use doctrine and all these other sort of things. And people keep saying, yeah, if you do it, you'll eventually win it, but the lawsuits are going to cost you $1 zillion. So I have really not much of a desire, because I thought about self-publishing a book on it. But do I really want to do a book, that's going to cost me $10,000 in legal fees that I win, that I then end up making $1 on the book? So it's a real issue. If you look under copyright law on a place like say Wikipedia, there's a whole section on how litigious the owners of the Atomium are, and it's not a battle I have cared to fight just yet. So let me get here into the first picture. Yeah.
Is the Atomium privately owned, or is it a like city-owned structure now?
It's privately owned, and yeah, that's the issue. They own it, and they say, okay, we're protecting the design of the original designer. They basically, it's just like it's interesting the difference in philosophy. The Space Needle is privately owned, but they've never decided to go after people or do anything. The Atomium people are really kind of unique in that, and I mean, there's been entire lawsuits and laws passed and everything, but people can sue you for anything. I mean, I could file a lawsuit today saying I don't like the color shirt you're wearing. I have no legal grounds to, challenge it, but people can file a lawsuit for like $35 in a court, and if they want to fight it, now you've got to go and get somebody to represent you, and it just becomes a rat hole to go down. So, you're not likely to see an Expo 58 book there's one or two out because I contributed to them. And they're really nice books, I think, because they're all in Belgium. So I don't know right what they're saying, but there's not a lot of Expo 58 stuff because the people that own it are just so damn hard to work with. They got to the point where they were suing people because they were putting pictures of the atomium on their blogs, and that's how litigious they were. Now, what's interesting, I've written to them 3 times asking what would it take to get a license to do this legally and everything, and they've never bothered to answer. So I think it's one of those things they probably don't answer because they know they don't have a legal ground to stand on. But then when you use it, then they sue, hoping you're going to pay them to go away. So anyway, well, what we're looking here is a souvenir slide. These were bright red. This is the preliminary version of the scan. So most of these are not color corrected, but it's interesting. If you look over to the building on the left with the big arch that goes over it, that building was actually built for a 1930s exposition, and they put that big arch up in there. As you're coming in, the main view here, you'd be going through these fountains and this reflecting pool, and you had all these 1930s looking buildings. So they built this big arch here, so you just didn't see them. So these buildings were all still available for exhibit space, but they didn't have the 1930s look to them. You can still see the old style entrance to it down below. But we're going to see all sorts of other parts of Expo 58. And then, oh my God, now I'm going to get sued. So, it's not for profit, not going to do it. Now, this represents, if I remember right, an iron molecule, and it's magnified something like 580,000 or something times. But these buildings, these circles have domes, rooms in them. You can go up from dome to dome, and up here is a restaurant that you can see. You can see the windows up there. So it has been redone and modernized and that sort of thing. It's still there, but that's the famous theme structure for it. And it was quite an ambitious structure. Again, thinking about all the weight of this has to be held on the arm here, and it's kind of interesting building. Again, this is looking at that fountain I mentioned. There's the arch that hides the 30s building. We have a skyway up here. What's interesting is in some of these cases, I don't know if it shows on this one. Oh, this one's okay. You can see it's bucket number 204. Some others, they printed them backwards. So the numbers, give the dead giveaway that the pictures are printed backwards. I joke all the time when we talk about the folks that did the souvenir slides for the 1964 World's Fair, how their quality control is non-existent. Well, they probably hired some of the people that did some of the Expo 58 ones because they're just flat ass backwards. So don't know the name of the sculpture. That's one of the things I'll just admit right now. I haven't looked at some of these pictures until last night for the last 15, 18 years. So when I get to the end of this, there's a picture. These were souvenir slides. So I took a picture of what the captions were in the souvenir slides. So we're going to have to go back and when we get to the end of it, look and see what the name of the picture was. Over here, you can see the famous Bell System logo because they were here giving a thing on international telecommunications. Building in the back was done to represent a giant vacuum tube. Remember those days of vacuum tubes and TV sets and stuff? And
So I think the vacuum tube building was Phillips.
yes, yeah. So I don't know the name of the avenue of statues here. So again, when we get to the end of this, we'll see it. But they had nice sidewalk cafes. This one's doors in the sun, but we said others you're going to have sitting under the trees, and there's people just with a sausage stand and a whole bunch of people sitting out there eating sausages and drinking beer and looking like they have a nice time. I got a kick out of it. The ultra modern World's Fair. These look like the lawn chairs my parents had at our house on Long Island for forever. So nothing modern about
They
it.
are.
What's that?
We have the same chairs. They fold up and the webs tend to have to be replaced every so often.
They
Yeah.
were probably modern at the time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They were probably, cutting edge back then. So, as I said, they went for some real nice modern looking buildings. What's really nice to me is you can see these were shot early in the run of Expo so they could sell it as souvenirs. There's no leaves on any of the trees. but they managed to leave quite a few mature trees on the site. So it was a unlike some fairs like the New Orleans World's Fair where there was no shade in sight. This was to me it looked like the buildings were fit into the site as opposed to being crammed in. Here's the United States Pavilion, big fountains out here, all these water jets spun around and made patterns. Back over here to the side is the Circarama Pavilion, which with a Disney movie. Again, and matter of fact, today, if we don't run out of time, some of these pictures have some nice shots of the interior display inside the building. The building still exists from about my mouth level down. All this upper structure was taken off, but everything down here is now a TV studio, and they do give tours, and they make reference to their World's Fair heritage. And again, I will not know what all these are. I apologize. We're going to be looking at pretty pictures and finding out later what they are. But everybody's well dressed.
I think that's steel. I think that's the steel pavilion. I think.
Oh, okay. We'll find
Yeah,
out.
Bill, I did when I was going to San Jose State, I took a what do you call it, urban planning class, and I actually did a paper on the Brussels World's Fair. So
Oh, great.
I'm fairly knowledgeable on it. Yeah.
Fill us in on any of these, because like I said, for some of these, I've looked at them and I haven't looked at them in years. And some of them, what's interesting, some of them you know really well. You say, oh, that's Canada because it showed up in whatever number of pictures and it gets seared in the mind. And then somebody has a picture of one pavilion and go, oh, I've never seen that one before. So feel free any point in here. If you say, hey, I know what that is, please jump in. They told me I'm lit up at night. It was pretty nice that they put all these lights in there and all lit up.
How did you travel from one of those globes to the other? How did you travel between the globes? Was an escalator in there? How did you travel from one of those globes to the other?
Ramps. They had ramps that went escalators in some of them, and then ramps and just stairways for the shorter ones. So
and the middle, the straight one, there's an elevator, so you could go directly up to the restaurant without having to go through the exits.
What do you think the diameter of that tube is?
Boy, I don't really know. Would you guess, Randy?
They're big enough to hold a full-size escalator.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I've seen pictures, since the restoration, and I believe the escalators were the original. They were just, refurbished and spruced up. And there's still enough room to have, like, with the escalator, people going up the escalator, and then like sculptures, small sculptures like hanging from the roof above the escalator, or some exhibit material. So they're fairly big.
Yeah, I think the restaurant seated like 50-something people, so it's a pretty good size.
I wonder if it would be possible to build this today because of fire codes.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, trying to get out of that thing in a fire would be a hell of an issue.
How does that compare to the size of the Unisphere?
Oh, it's good. Well, I think it's bigger than the Unisphere, but obviously a lot of empty space in there. But yeah, it's bigger. I'd say it's bigger than the Unisphere, right, Randy?
I think so. Yeah, maybe not a whole lot bigger, but bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. And here again, you can see that the quality control goes a little off in some of these pictures. As a matter of fact, when I first scanned it, when you have the slide, it's got a shiny side and a matte side to it. When I scanned it, I thought, oh, I must have put it in the scanner upside down. And no, then I thought maybe they put it in the mount upside down. No, they just printed it backwards. So, but let me let somebody else in here. Here's a nice view of the overall site. So here's the Atomium. Here's the building in the back that mentioned. We're going to see that they had their own Belgian village, which actually used some of the same elements of the 33 and 64 Belgian village. But it was a pretty nice sized piece of property out here. So I see.
Bill,
I've got to go.
So this view was basically what incorporated the 1935 exposition. As you mentioned, that arch hides a building. They removed a lot of statuary off the front of that building and stored it because it's been restored to the original look. since the 58 fair closed. And then to either side of it, just to the left, just to the right are exhibition halls. And yeah, just go up. Okay. So if you slide your cursor, where is it? Go up to the arch. Okay, and then just go directly to your right. Those are from the 35. That one you just went just to the left of the Atomium, that's from 35. And on the other side of the arch is from 35. And then some of the halls that attach to that arch are from 35. They totally modernized the halls that butt up to the 1935 arch building. But one of these was an art pavilion. It's either the one where your cursor is now or the one on the other side of the arch. I can't remember which is which. Where is it? Well, yeah, it's there. You see an old looking part of it. Move your cursor to the left a little bit. Right there. Yeah, okay, go down to the right a little bit.
Sorry, which way?
Go right, just a bit. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a 35 building.
Right.
And those halls behind that building were from 35. They actually added on 2 more of those halls for 58. And then all this stuff, like this fountain that goes down towards the Atomium, were from 1935. Just spruced up somewhat. They kept a lot of the structures there. Or the infrastructure. The road system was almost identical to the 1935 fair.
Yeah, they basically did the same thing 64 did.
Right.
Reuse the infrastructure, the roads and plumbing.
Right. But what they did for 58 was all the international pavilions. We don't see any international pavilions in this shot. They were in a wooded area that was not part of the 35 fair, but was part of a royal palace. And that's, you see the beautiful big trees behind like the Yugoslavia pavilion. And part of the agreement for them to use that was that they could not remove trees, or they, could remove small trees, but not big trees, whatever. And that was kind of a challenge for them because they had a hard time building, wide enough roadways to handle the traffic and the large pavilions. So it was a great challenge to get this all done.
Yeah, it turned out nice. One thing I wanted to point out, by the way, was the size and scope of some of these buildings. If you look here's a plane on display.
It's a caravel.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, okay, so basically what I did was I scanned these over time, and they were in different sets. But if we look, when we started, they call, the first area here, this one on Nations Avenue, Yugoslavia. So I guess in here, the one you said might be CECA.
Yeah, I wonder if that's. I should run upstairs. I have the guidebook.
Yeah, I have it too. As a matter of fact, Brussels was one of the first things that got me interested in World's Fair. My Aunt Flox had gone over there, and she borrowed our family movie camera and managed to photograph her thumb going throughout Brussels. She didn't realize quite what a lens was, but she brought back the guidebook, and I went through that thing over and over and over. And she eventually said, well, "I'm going to just let you have it." So it's her guidebook to the World's Fair became my first World's Fair souvenir of anything.
That was kind of how I became interested too. My 3rd grade teacher, Miss Edson, went to the fair and she took color slides and showed them, to our class. And I was just fascinated by the modern architecture.
Yeah, so memorize all these names because we're going to go see them. Let me go to the next folder here. And again, there's the U.S. Pavilion. They had this elevated motorized walkway up here. There was a big thing at this point in time that people thought all the roads were going to be up in the sky and people walking down below. So they have walkways. And we're going to be underneath the walkway and see what it looks like. But we have the Vatican Pavilion off here in the back, and then the U.S. Pavilion, Circarama. Anywhere I go wrong in here, Randy, please correct me.
You're doing good, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like the DuPont Pavilion from the New York Fair.
No, it's still round, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the U.S. Pavilion was designed by Edward Durrell Stone, who did, what, 2 or 3 pavilions for New York.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the one they spent so much money building. Matter of fact, there's a really nice shot we'll see about the suspended roof, and it has real it brought me right back to the New York Tent of Tomorrow roof with the suspended roof. But that's where they spent so much money on the building and the design of it that they didn't have much money for the exhibits.
Yeah, those panels that are actually suspended from the roof, kind of gold filigree, which was a signature of Edward Durrell Stone.
Right.
That type of finishing touch. It was suspended from the roof. I mean, the pavilion would definitely was something that could have been, moved because it was very, kind of like a Lego type thing almost.
Right. So here's Belgian Congo. Argentina, and then as Randy mentioned, you have to fit this in the tree. Imagine if the tree had been growing here, they would have changed the whole design of the building. Oh, one thing you see in a lot of these pictures is nuns. We're going to see them coming up in a bunch of them. But boy, there were a lot of nuns that went to Expo 58, or at least they got in front of the cameras a lot. Again, real ultra modern looking stuff, trying to convince the world that that they're back. It's modern. We can do all this work, and
that was West Germany.
This is West Germany. Thank you. Oh yeah,
and up here too. Yeah, it all was a large complex of buildings.
Right. Here's Great Britain, which I could never understand how that design is supposed to be Britain, but here's Great Britain.
And actually, Great Britain had 2 buildings. We're seeing one kind of in the foreground where the tower is. That was the British Industries, and then the government pavilion was the one that they kind of likened it to a cathedral.
Right. And here's inside the building, Britain. You can see the Queen in the background. Nighttime, having a great time. Oh, there's our first batch of nuns for the day. And it's really interesting. The habits are so different from some of the American orders. I don't know if anybody's an expert on deciphering some of them, but we have quite a bit. And then the shots of what you call it, some of the men, the monks or abbots or whatever they are. But the traditional things you see in the pictures with the flat brimmed hats and stuff, we'll see them coming up. Obviously, the USSR, here's the fountains outside the US. So the US and the USSR were very, very close to each other. Absolute, total difference in pavilions. One's square, one's round. You just wonder about the symbology or whatever of that. And then inside, America was showing women's fashions and, things along that line. And in here, they're showing Sputnik and grain threshers, and I mean the 2 approaches to the World's Fair to me could not have been any different. I believe they took this pavilion back to Moscow with them. Is that correct, Randy?
I don't know about that one. I've always wondered.
Yeah. So they took
Why does the sign read URSS?
Because it's in French, and it's done. If you go to Expo 67, on one side it was URSS, and the other side whatever was USSR. So yeah, it's just it's just a matter of the host country's language.
Bill, and that's the interior. Yeah, this kind of started the trend of at Brussels, Montreal, and Osaka. The USSR did hard sell with space junk and a lot of propaganda. The U.S. did propaganda, but very soft sell. One of the big things in Brussels was the U.S. showed voting machines, to kind of, point out the fact that we voted, in fair and democratic elections, and the Soviets didn't.
Yeah, so we're inside the USSR here. I mean, or the URSS, whatever you want to do it. But I mean, just look how brutalistic the statues are. I mean, the guy with his big ass hammer or whatever he's doing. I think he was working in a steel mill, and that's part of the equipment.
And then Lenin in the background.
Yeah, the Lenin in all the USSR pavilion, it always looks like, obey me or die sort of thing. I mean, there's never a picture of, I mean, Lenin probably at one point in his life actually smiled, but you sure couldn't tell it from any of their exhibits. But, the massive pavilion, again, incredible design of these things, but, total different approach. If we look down here, we'll zoom in a bit. Oh my goodness, there's a Belgian village down here. And I've read, and I've not had it verified, that they actually used some of the same molds for the this Belgian village as they had used for the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. In looking at it, I don't see a lot of the familiar buildings like the round bell tower or some of the city hall or whatever. So you don't know if it's just one of those stories that's taken on time, taken life over time. But they had a thing celebrating the history of Belgium, the past of it, as well as, oh, here's the one I thought about this guy. And he's coming along with his book or anything. I mean, isn't that just typical, stereotypical thing of, you expect him to start solving mysteries or something. One of there's one of those priests or this whole series of books where he, it's not the Hercule Poirot, but there's somebody else.
There's a Father Brown. Father
Brown or something. He just looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But do you happen to know what statue this might be, Brandy?
No.
And how about would you like to fill people in on the big tower here?
That's the civil engineering pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
Those cables hanging from that arm held up you could see it. It was a suspended walkway,
Mm-hmm.
and below the walkway was a landscape model, not to scale necessarily, but of Belgium.
Yeah, we're going to see some shots of that. It's pretty large size model.
This building survived for several years after the fair closed, but eventually got torn down. Yeah.
Yeah, in some of the stuff I've done, they said this was some amazing model of cantilevered architecture that they were able to put this out, and as Randy mentioned, the cables holding up the walkway. So they were doing this to prove basically a point in engineering that you could anchor these things, have things go the way the hell out. And theoretically, there could have been another building that come up and matched it, and you could have had, stuff held up down below. So it was a real proof of concept that, engineering could do this. And again, no computers really back in this days. It was some guy with a slide rule.
It almost looks like they reused the the Trilon.
Yeah, it does. Walked on sale and tipped it over.
Why do you suppose Belgium kept recreating the village for every fair? They never tried anything different.
Just why not? I mean, think about it. Back when I was growing up in the 1950s and 60s, one of the giant big things that was of interest around were Old West towns. I mean, I went to Frontier Town, upstate New York in the Adirondacks. Around the United States, people were building old Western towns. People like to go look at the heritage and go back. So here's a nice shot showing the France pavilion, obviously labeled, but you can see how big these things were. The U.S. pavilion here, the USSR, France. I mean, a lot of money was spent on putting these things together.
France opened late. I think about a month late. Where it sits was the low point of that section of the grounds, and they had a lot of rain, and that area flooded.
Oh.
And they actually had, they opened late. And back to the Belgian village at this fair, it was not an exhibit. It was a collection of nightclubs and restaurants, and it actually remained open till like 2 in the morning. Yeah, there's a round building that if we see it again in there, it was called the Martini Bar. It was very popular.
Right here.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
yeah, this had nothing to do with it, like a government exhibit or anything.
Were they quick to demolish most of this after the end of the fair?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That sculpture of that woman looks like an Aristide Maillol. I could be wrong, but he did such things. I put it in the comments.
Oh, great. I'll take a look at it after. Thanks.
And like the fountain that we just saw in that previous slide, that was from the 1935 exposition. Yeah.
Great. Do you happen to know what ship this propeller might have been for?
No, but it's part of the Dutch exhibit, I believe. The Dutch did a whole thing on water, controlling the flooding of the low-lying country.
Yeah, there's a plaque, but I can't quite make it out. It's probably in the guidebook, and I have to go back. Another nun out for the day. How about the tower here where they're going up and taking the look? Do you remember the name of that one, Randy?
Pretty sure that is part of the Netherlands Pavilion also.
Okay.
Right behind me, I just have to get up. I've got a framed map of the fair behind. Hold on a second, let me look at it.
That big propeller might have been a turbine from a hydroelectric plant.
No, I think that's a ship's propeller. That's usually where the axle goes and the cap on it there.
Yeah, I can't see that tower in behind me. It's a kind of a caricature map of the fair, and I don't see that.
Oh yeah, I have one of those. My aunt brought that back.
Yeah, it was very popular.
Whoops. Sorry, hit the mouse. The mouse a little too sensitive at times. Vatican. Here again is the elevated walkway that you could take these, tour rides down.
That sculpture, you can see it in the upper right-hand corner in this slide, but it was better viewed in the other one, just previous. That was one of the entry gates. All the entry gates had these. They were suspended by a series of cables and all that. They were really pretty architecturally amazing, and they indicated gates.
It's just sort of like they had at Spokane, they had the giant butterflies at the entrances. Yeah. And the pylon towers at New York.
Yeah.
I just wish I had the what you call it, the concession to supply American flags. I mean, boy, they had a lot of them out there. Here's inside. This is a nice shot inside the U.S. Pavilion, and again, it shows how airy it is. We'll see more of the roof, but look at the roof panels up here going around the circle in the center. I mean, they look to me so much like the sections of the New York State roof. So in here, they had a sculpture garden, modern sculptures. Other areas, they had paintings and different things. As Randy mentioned, a thing on voting and the American government. There's also in this reflecting pool down here, there's a very long ramp that comes down, and they would have models come down, do a turnaround, a concrete platform, and then go back up. So they had lots and lots of fashion shows trying to show just how stylish the American woman was. Then, as I mentioned earlier, you had some pavilions like Thailand would have looked right at home in the '64 World's Fair. There's a smaller version of the pavilion than we had in New York, but very traditional architecture. What struck me as I'm looking at a number of these is how non-ADA compliant some of these pavilions were. You mentioned like getting out of the atomium in a fire or something, but I don't think they had too many elevators or escalators or things to get people into some of these. So we're into more of the international pavilions. They had, you can see, I think this is still the edge of France right here. But you had Turkey and Pakistan, a number of others exhibited. Here's underneath the walkway. So you had a nice garden down here. It looked like aspen trees and some benches to sit on in that. But this was up above where those trams were giving the guided tours. And this is one of the few shots I found actually underneath the walkway. Switzerland, and it's spelled that way because that's the way the French spell it, I guess. So it's not somebody with a dyslexia. And what is this one? K.
It's Hungary.
Hungary. Okay, yeah, I'm having a hard time making it out. Thanks. Very modern looking. Nice nighttime view. And I think there's maybe one more folder in this this group. Yes. Okay. Just a few in this folder. So we have the nighttime. Some of these look like they're shot, with nobody in it because there's no blurred motion of people going down the walkways. Here's that same tower that you mentioned before, the British Industrial, and then the tower. I'm sure it has a name. There's the cathedral-like UK government building over there. In Belgian Village, people down tables. Randy mentioned big restaurant type nightclub area. Random fountain out in the woods. I think the New York Belgian Village looked more authentic than this Belgian Village.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. This was the symbol that they used all throughout the grounds, and it's on their literature, their maps. Whether it's a new star leading us onward or whatever. But what was this rampway called? It was something to do with stars, wasn't it, Randy?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. Israel. They're just sitting there watching the fountains, having a nice time. So let me get to the next batch. I think the next batch is amateur slides. We'll take a look here.
Bill, were these slides, what was the name of the company? Rolock or something like that?
No, these were sold, Rolock, yeah, color backwards. That was the American sailor, I'll think of his name in a minute, that did that on the side. These were ones that were sold on site, and what you call it, souvenir ones on site. Rolock, God, what is his name? I'll think of it later. He sold his through mail order and stuff, and he was really a good photographer. He did some of the Rolock slides are really well done.
Yeah.
So we're above the site. Again, this hasn't been restored, so the colors are not particularly brilliant or anything, but it gives you a good idea, how large this was. Giant U.S. World globe here, and this was, oh God, who was it? Was it a map company?
No, it was Pan Am.
Pan Am, the airline, right? Okay, thanks. What was interesting, I looked at this here, and boy, this looks like it could have come right out of the 64 fair, at least some of the concept art. So it was really interesting. You wonder how many architects went over there and saw this and decided to go and do something else,
Bill, this area was a collection of international organizations. I'm thinking that, because there's the one I called the Steel Pavilion up in the upper left-hand corner. I think it was like an international council on steel or something, but UN is one of these buildings. They were all international organizations.
Yeah, I think this was UN. I think this was the UN. We're going to see it from the ground with the signage.
Yeah.
Again, just to give an example here of how dark some of these things come out, you can then start playing with it. And what I'll do is now take the two of these, use the Photoshop, and take the brightness out of this and the colors out of that, and I'll get them back into life. Parking lot.
I'm sorry, Bill, this gives you a good idea. Okay, so yeah, you see that original 1935 building with the parabolic arch on the far side of it. And then originally there was that building and then the two exhibition halls on either side of it, and then the art pavilion and whatever the other one is up above it. But then one of the exhibition halls has a bunch of, looks like skylights on top of it or something. Yeah, that was added for 58, as was the one on the other far end. And this gives you a good idea of all this forward area. It's kind of a grouping of trees divides it. All that wooded area in the mid area there was for international. That was part of a royal park. And off to the side somewhere, there's a royal palace. And I'm not sure exactly where. Then all the foreground here was Belgian. They grouped them into industries. It was like diamond industries, you know, all kind of like, they were kind of like their version of theme pavilions, but they just kind of grouped industries, and one building was diamonds because, you know, the Belgian Congo and the diamond industry, you know, other industries that were important to the Belgian economy.
Now down here, I think these are just apartment houses, correct?
Yeah, they are. And actually, if you can go slide it so we can see to the left of that, you know, let me keep all the way to the edge. Let me see this. Yeah, they must have finally got it. In the 35 exhibition, it's really weird because kind of where the big travel or transportation pavilion is, there was a school there and they refused to move. So it sat actually right in the middle of the fair, but surrounded by buildings.
Huh.
And yeah, I guess they managed to get them to move for this one.
Yeah, so imagine if you wanted to go to the World's Fair, how convenient it'd be to have one of these apartments, huh?
Yeah, and then on the very right hand of that slide, we're seeing that's part of the amusement area. Yeah, right there. You see that as a roller coaster or something, yeah.
Roller coaster there, yeah. And sign here for the heliport. And like I said, I'm looking forward to restoring some. What's really interesting is, you know, sometimes you get a picture like this and it's kind of flat, the colors aren't so well done. Then the next one, bam, you know, the colors really jump out at you. So, you know, the unfinished work, very strange looking thing. It looks like a piece of sculpture with a ramp you walk through.
Yeah, I have no idea what that actually is.
Yeah, so inside the US Pavilion again, and the big circular ring that's holding up all the supports for the roof. Down below here, again, when I restore it, hopefully we'll get more detail out of it. But this is sort of the exhibit area, and down below was where we saw the sculptures before.
And those trees were there before the fair. They could not remove them.
Yeah, building around them.
Yeah, they worked them into the design. Yeah.
So looks like a gaucho, and he's you know, having a nice chat with somebody. So looking up, nice and shiny. You get a nice view looking back down. Again, I have to figure out where some of these things, like where this mural is.
There's Canada, the lower left hand.
Oh yes, here Canada down here, right? Hey, a big favorite for any beer drinker. Beer garden. Can't have a World's Fair without a beer garden, right? Let me go to the next folder. So we're going to show you oil drilling for the Soviet Union. Vatican in the background, the U.S. fountains here. So this has been taken from the steps of the USSR looking across. The telelift, otherwise known as a ski lift to us. Again, some of these are going to take a lot of work. They're super weird on the exposure, but you know, there's another one I did a little bit, and I'll put them together. Nice shot inside the USSR. We're looking back to the way that we looked before. There's the steel worker back here, but now you can start seeing some of the space hardware that was on display. This was a real win for the Soviet Union, because you can imagine in 1958, you know, the idea of, you know, who's going to be first in space, first to the moon, you know, Sputnik and all these things were really big things. So putting these mock-ups on display was a real PR win for them, as far as how the Soviet system is the leading system. There's Hungary again. Going up the steps to the USSR. Inside, this is inside the US, and I'm not sure what it is, some sort of futuristic control console. Oh, here's inside the U.S. again. So artwork here. We have Lincoln sitting in his chair in the Lincoln Memorial, and other parts of Americana down here. If we zoom in on any of it, oh, it's the famed American ladder. You wonder what they were fixing that particular day. But yeah, here's somebody giving a speech or talking, and everybody's gathering around. Again, I can't quite yet make out what this sign is. What's interesting here, I got a kick out of this one. See the little boat? Well, that's so they could go out and clean out the fountain around there. And you'd think they would have found a way to hide it or make it go away or something. But as people either dropped candy wrappers or their glasses or a quarter into the fountain, they could go out and clean the thing out. End of this guy's roll.
Bill, kind of interestingly, the restaurant in the U.S. Pavilion was a brass rail.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I've got a menu somewhere from it. Yeah.
Oh, I hope they serve more than just hot dogs.
Well, was Brass Rail known for other things?
Oh yeah, Brass Rail was a real restaurant chain throughout New York. So
I know the menu definitely has more than hot dogs. Yeah.
Yeah,
but it definitely featured American food.
Yeah, basically the '64 fair did them in, so
yeah.
They didn't last a long time. So what's interesting is this is one of the entrances here. You look in, and there's the booths and people getting their tickets. And
actually, Bill, I think that is actually a ticket booth for that's the amusement area.
Yeah, you can see the ride right here in the background.
Because along with the Belgian Village with all the restaurants and cocktail lounges and all that, the amusement park stayed open like till 2 a.m. also. So that might have been a way of, cordoning off that area from the main exhibition grounds so that people could enter there, after hours.
Yeah. Yeah, just like the lake amusement area at the '64 fair stayed open later, right? So, but you can see some guards back here, the fence, and it's just a kind of interesting shot. And then, we don't have Brock on today. We could have told us exactly what model car that is, but so again, this was just an example of the raw scan, and then the quick initial scan using color correction on the Nikon scanner, and then I'll go in and work on it later on. They had this really, I got a kick out of. I mentioned before, you wonder who went to this fair and took home ideas. Well, that sure looks like the aerial tower ride out of the '64 World's Fair, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, and then down below some more of the games and stuff. Then again, '64 fair, you had the Greyhound going around with towing trams, and again, you had tractors here going around towing people. She didn't seem to like to have her picture taken. Sorry, lady.
Can you get rid of her?
Get rid of her? Yeah, I could do that. It's really funny. I took a picture of somebody at one of the World's Fairs, and I took them out and I put it online, and somebody said, "How did you get rid of that person?" And I said, "Oh, it was Photoshop. I used the Jimmy Hoffa filter, and I sent them to the Meadowlands." And the person was, "Wow, I never heard of the Jimmy Hoffa filter. Who sells that?" Duh.
Yeah, Bill, I think I've seen that picture. I think it's from New York. Yeah, it's amazing how you did it, because there's no evidence that anybody was there.
Yeah, I've done that on a bunch of them. Like a woman in front of the, I think it was either the solar or the lunar fountain. I took them out, but there was another one where a guy is just right in front of the New York State Pavilion on a day I didn't want him there, and it was a chain link fence, not chain link fence, but a fence with a chain, blocking it. And he was blocking that, so now I have to go and grab that and grab another part of the fence. And the trouble with that one was it was curving down. So now I've got to take the chain over here, flip it over, and put it there. But hey, it keeps my mind off of other things.
Keeps you off the streets.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry to be boring you, Irv. We'll try to keep you awake.
Okay, thanks.
So in this particular one, that there were, let's see, all sorts of folders because I would do it at all sorts of different times. So people dressed up so nice and neat to go to World's Fairs. I don't know if we're going to see a single pair of blue jeans this entire time. I don't know if people wore them in 1958.
I bet they were a luxury in Europe at that time.
Yeah. So again, here's an example where I scan this at all sorts of different settings and lights, and you combine them together. And the atomium again, Belgian flag flying at the top. It's interesting, it wasn't there in the earlier pictures, and as time went on, they added it up there. So now you can tell this is later, both by the flag being up there, and also the trees have now started to fill out, have some color to them.
And kind of interestingly, that subterranean building is actually the station for the sky ride.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's a nicer view of that building you mentioned. They're coming down the ramp here, and the skyway's coming down. And it starts a steep descent into the station here.
And these slides are capturing the landscaping was supposedly, extraordinary throughout the grounds.
Here's the propeller again. What's interesting is some of these, you try to figure out, is this a delivery being made or is this part of the exhibit? Because you can see another truck or something or train over here, and it's obviously not going anywhere. So you wonder if this was a display about, how their trucking industry or, because here's shipping, here's train, here, trucking. So, if you first look at it, it looks like somebody's getting a late delivery, but then you say it's probably part of the pavilion.
Bill, is it in the other photo with the propeller?
Is what?
Is the truck in the other photo with the propeller?
No, the other one was shot here and it goes over basically this angle and the truck doesn't show up. This area does not show up in the other one.
Oh, just a thought.
Yeah, no, I'll have to go and look for what you call it, other views, because again, we're only looking at a tiny little portion. I have a couple thousand pictures of Expo 58, so we're only going to be looking at some of them today. You know what this one was, Randy?
No. But that is in a wooded area that they built very little in because it was so dense. There were a couple restaurants in there and a few exhibits, but they would have had to do massive tree removal and it wasn't allowed.
Oh, the dog's getting interested. She must hear the mail truck. It's about time.
That's Luxembourg. I think that's Luxembourg to the left.
Yes, over here on this side. Yeah, all cantilevered, elevated structure. There's a nice shot of that coming up in one of these. And down below.
That's Congo. Yeah.
Yeah. So up here you can see the Congo Pavilion, and down here, I'm not sure what it is for Germany down here, but again, there's not an ADA compliant sort of site here, but again, people just dress so nicely. All these people with their ties and their hats and their handbags and everything. The Congo area, some of the sculpture.
Nice sculpture. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you wonder if, some of these things, you hope that they are around somewhere you can go see them. Another nice mural there.
There's that building again. Yeah.
So we'll keep marching our way.
And the skyride actually took a turn. It went straight down this avenue and then it made a left and went into the international section. So
now I'm not quite sure which pavilion this is. Let's see if we get any hints from the words down here.
How did this fair do financially? Did they make money?
I don't know if Expo 58 did or not.
I don't think it did, but once again, you know, it was very, very heavily subsidized by the government. Wasn't expected to make money.
Yeah, it was to bring attention, come back, and Belgium could be your international port. A giant uranium atom.
I was going to say to Irv that the picture with the sky buckets there kind of gave dimensions of what the tubes were like connecting, you know, the different spheres.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Rather industrial looking display. Not sure where we are here, but there's uranium symbol again. So it looks like a atomic reactor. We'll have to figure out where that is.
How many people here today actually went to this fair?
How many people? I don't know what the attendance was on it.
No, of us, our group here.
Of
Anybody
us.
there?
We were all kids.
Yeah, I mean, I was 6 years old. I sure as hell didn't go. But my
I
aunt,
was -3.
yeah.
-1.
I would
Yeah,
have been 12.
I was 6 also. Yeah. So.
You young punks. So this is kind of interesting if you look at it, and it's the progress of what Soviet something in here is Soviet.
Yeah, that many women participate in progress of industry.
Oh, okay.
Soviet industry.
Correct. Yeah.
So women in the Soviet workforce.
Right. It's interesting how, again, if you scan these things at two totally different settings, you know, over here you go, oh my God, there's a whole thing with a woman over there. So again, that's where the HDR combined feature is really pretty helpful. And they had a film show in here. You can see the sign for it, the theater, and they were, of course, showing you know, films to show you how good everything was, and everybody's so happy over there, and how you'd like to be part of their system.
I think LaRousse is a publishing house, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's that dome on the right?
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
We get to see a lot of it.
It's my understanding that they originally wanted to build the atomic. Well, that gives you kind of a good idea of the size of those tubes.
Yeah, they're big enough
to build the atomium without. I'm sorry.
These are skylights as you walk through the tubes.
Right.
From the previous photo, you notice those steps going up, the previous photo?
Yeah. They originally, as my understanding, they originally wanted to build it without those. And they just couldn't, you know, physically couldn't do it. But they also, I'm sure, acted as an emergency exit route too. I believe that's Saudi Arabia, I believe, that circular building.
Mm-hmm.
Believe. See, then there are houses right outside the grounds. You could see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't see any long lines in any of the pavilions.
But yeah, there had to have been, because they got just under 50 million. I think about 48 million. There had to have been days when.
Oh yeah, it's a fairly.
There's a picture in that book. You have it too, Bill, but yours is, I think, is in French. I have it in English, and there's a couple of pictures there where, I mean, it's just wall to wall people. So yeah, it had to be that way a lot of the time. It's got to be Mexico.
Yeah, gotta be. Yeah, I've got to drag out the guidebook and figure all this out.
Yeah, you can see the Mexican seal down the lower right.
Right.
Eagle and the snakes or whatever, yeah.
Here's, you can see Luxembourg, the big glass building. Again, Thailand. Okay, you wanted to see people, there you go. You got people.
Wow.
This had to be more typical, yeah.
You remember
Actually, That's snuck in somehow. That's the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto, Canada.
This really?
Yes, because
Oh, okay.
that building was the horticultural building. This was the Queen Elizabeth building that was built in the 1960s. That's the
modern
Princess
building?
Margaret Fountain.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is definitely Toronto.
Isn't that something? It was in the middle of all these other
Somehow
signs.
snuck in.
Yeah,
Wonder
it
it's
looks
a
like
warm,
somebody's
warm,
wearing
sunny day there.
jeans.
Good catch. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's
It's the
great. I
first warm,
appreciate
sunny
it.
day.
When I went to figure out what it was, that would have.
Yeah, that's our annual exhibition that's held at the end of summer every year, and it's been for about since 1878.
Yeah, and I was
Wow.
gonna say I didn't recognize that the older style building. I know there were a few older style buildings that were outline buildings from the Royal Palace
Yeah,
that
that's what I
were
was.
dotted on the grounds, but nothing that big.
Yeah, I was just starting to ask if you knew what that was because I couldn't place
Yep.
it. Well, now I know
That's
why.
absolutely it.
Funny, funny. You wonder how that one picture got into it, you know?
Yes.
This was the first Circle Vision, wasn't it?
Behind it was well, actually, no. They had the first Circle Vision was called Circarama, and it was
Yeah.
at Disneyland. And then they did an improved system here, became Circle Vision. You know, and they changed the brand name on it to get away from Circarama, which was sponsored by American Motors. So it became Circle Vision. They also changed from, I think it was a 11 screen system to a 9 screen system, or from 7 to 9. And we talked about it a week or two ago, but this was where the State Department realized we need to come up with some draw, and they had Disney do it, and Disney was really happy to do it because now they could bring that back to the theme park and put a new version of the film in it, nobody else at somebody else's expense.
And I think it was the most attended exhibit at the fair.
Yeah, I think it hit the record. So at nighttime, we have the sides of the Great Britain Pavilion here.
That was Spain on the left. And that building was actually, I don't know if it still exists, but it was moved to a park in Madrid. It may still be there, I don't know.
Interesting to wonder how many are still around. And inside the United States, again, when I look at this, I just see the New York State Pavilion. You know, it's just, I guess there's only so many ways you can do a circular suspended roof. Fountains down below. And again, this is an example of the initial scan, the first Nikon scanner correction, and then I'll work on it. So here we are having a late night drink at the Belgian Village. I don't know what these people are. I assume they have to be part of some street performance, or I hopefully that's a glued-on mustache. I mean, I think that, yeah, that's a pretty impressive piece of hair, face hair there. But the megaphones, you just wonder what they're doing or what they're promoting or whatever. But you know, if he's some famous character, I don't know. There's a little Punch and Judy show going on in the background here. So and then I see all these signs for ginger ale. I was wondering if that's anything like ginger ale. So just weird the things you pick up here in these random shots. So
Yeah, and just above the two of them, it looks almost like a Punch and Judy puppet show.
yeah, that's what I said. Punch and Judy right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, again, is just so Belgium, right?
Yeah.
We'll do a
Could
few
it possibly have been a British pavilion exhibit? Because he's wearing almost a British bowler hat.
Theirs was indoors, so I don't know what
It was,
I can
okay.
go back to that one. Hang on a second. Let me go back. I just have to where was he? Was he in this set? Nope. I'll find him.
In the slide you have up right now, on the right is the gas industries.
All right, so does ginger ale mean anything to anybody?
No.
Because they look almost, the man and the woman almost 1912 Titanic type passengers
Yeah.
clothing.
You could try Googling it, ginger ale.
That's what I was just doing. It comes up with ginger ale, but it probably thinks I misspelled it.
Mm,
You can see it's right here on the little marquee for Punch and Judy here.
yeah.
Yeah, the other something, well, marionettes, I can read marionettes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, theater of marionettes.
Right. Theater of Marionettes.
That's a British spelling of theater.
True. Yeah.
Is Punch and Judy a British concept?
Yes, very much
I
so.
wasn't sure.
I don't know if there's any other, no, nothing that really shows up in any of the other shots of, I wish.
Ginger ale is a pale ale. It's Belgian by a company called Stella Artois.
Oh, okay.
So it's an alcoholic drink?
That's what it's looking like.
Yeah. Huh.
Took a little doing, but I found it.
Interesting.
Yep.
Maybe these two had a little bit too much of ginger ale.
Yeah.
She doesn't smile very much.
So you see, that's the gas industries on the right.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I say, all those buildings around the Tomium were all different, various industries. Yeah.
Sign off here to the heliport.
So who owns the Atonium now?
A private organization owns it. They bought it, and I think they paid for it to put it up, and they still continue to run it, just like the Space Needle, is private. So if you go to Seattle, you pay your money to go up. It goes to the people that own the Space Needle. You go to the Atomium, you pay the money to go up. They get it. Very blurry shot inside France here, but just wanted to give an idea of the scope of the size of it. And again, what I try to do on some of these is, photograph what I'm looking at, so when I can later go back. I really appreciate it when people do go and put their description on the slides. The trouble is you cannot always assume that what they put on there is what it actually is. I mean, I've seen pictures of, like say the New York World's Fair, and somebody was labeled the DuPont Pavilion, and you go, it's actually General Electric. Just because it's round doesn't mean, just because it's written there doesn't mean that they knew what they were talking about. This is Germany, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gives you an idea of the gardens and how beautiful they were.
Yeah. I just keep looking at these and go, my God, the window washing budget must have been insane on some of these things.
Parts of the German pavilion were relocated back to Germany, but I'm not sure what parts or what they were used for, or if they're even still there.
Yeah, and it was again, several different buildings connected with little sky bridges between them, more of the gardens.
Yeah, and that design was done because it had to fit into the space without removing trees, without doing a lot of change to the topography. So they had to work around that.
What in the world is that?
That thing, what? Oh, this thing. Yeah. Well, in the middle of that is an anchor to me. Right?
I don't know what this
but that
is.
thing inside of it, just to the left, if you move your cursor, yeah, right there. Those were all over the fairgrounds.
Yeah, they're signs.
Those are signposts.
Yeah, direction signs.
The big curve thing.
They were neon. They were neon tubes, basically, bent, and they lit up at night. And
yeah, you can see in some of the shots they're lit up around the perimeter. This I don't know what it is.
Colors. The red indicated maybe the international area. The yellow was, whatever, the industrial area.
Yeah, they also had pictographs trying to tell you what the areas were too.
Yeah.
But this thing, I don't know what it is. A giant boat anchor. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And I don't know whose pavilion we're in here, but they
say U.S. No,
could be.
Yeah.
There's some signage here, but again, I don't. I'm gonna have to adjust the contrast and brightness and see what I can bring in. And you assume that these were performers that were there for the day, but in some cases it could be people, just folk, dancers or whatever. Again, some of these I will not bother restoring because they're just a little too far gone.
Bill, could you go back to?
This one?
Yeah. Is that Russia or UN?
No, Russia, URSS.
Oh,
again,
okay, sorry.
You can see the
Yeah.
spick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
For a
then-
second,
up here.
no, for a second I thought it was UN.
No, we should see the UN. So we'll get to
I'm wondering if that Lenin statue was the same one at Expo 67 and Expo 70. I know, I've seen pictures of Expo 67. There was a Lenin statue.
Don't know. Like I said, in every one of them, he's not happy. Now, in this one, you can see how things go wrong over time. Luckily, this is going to be very easy to fix with the cloning tool. I can grab this, here, put it there, put it there. I can grab this column here, put it there. So with Photoshop, it's just kind of astonishing how you can undo some of these things. And I think this was something like hydropower. Just all sorts of crazy modernistic stuff and showing you how, Belgium and Europe is back. Yeah, I think now that you mention it, I see it from this angle. I think that they are a publishing house, and this was they're displayed out here because I do remember restoring this from another one for a book on Expo 58 I contributed to, and now that you mentioned it before, I think you're 100% right.
I put a link to Petit LaRousse in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Here's the staircase again.
Yeah, quite a climb to top of that puppy.
Yeah, so here, this one has a couple things. And here's that blue dome I mentioned before, and you can see it's the United Nations. And it's also the signage that Randy mentioned. We can zoom in on it a bit. So they had, again, different zones had different symbols. And you can see the neon tubes that are going up, and this would light up at night. It did show up in one of the pictures we showed earlier. So again, picture and a color sending over that way. You can see there's another one here is red, another one blue, sending into the different zones of it. And then down here, more signs. But looks like an exhibit on minerals. But looks like a bunch of sailors going into the United Nations. They had a pretty good size pavilion here. And keep in mind, the United Nations was still very, very new in 1958. So I'm sure it was a, big thing for a lot of people to try to figure out how do we keep from having World War III. Let's go see what these guys have in mind. More of the Belgian Congo.
Okay, so this is already, we talked about this a while back. When the fair opened, they had people from the Congo behind these fences living their daily lives. Well, it became very controversial because it was basically a human zoo is the way people saw it. And then fairgoers started throwing bananas at them. So they, I guess, sent the people back to the Congo, but kept this part up.
Right, you can see there's nobody inside the fences anymore.
Right.
Happy tourist. This motif here really lets you know when you're in the Belgian Congo area. They used it all throughout on the buildings and signage and poles and everything, so it shows up a lot. I don't know if there's a particular name or whatever for it. And the other side of the sky lift we saw before going into the tunnel area over near the atomium, and here it's going down into the other lift. Not surprisingly, the atomium shows up a lot. More of the signage over here. These are, it's again, the things you take out of, you know, people going to World's Fair. This is exactly like the butterfly shapes at Spokane. I mean, they basically did, the Spokane ones were bigger, but that's exactly what they did, you know, with the shape and the pointing to the way with colors and that sort of thing. And here's the big cantilevered arch that we mentioned before. And here's the map that's underneath it. And this had moving parts on it, and it lit up at night. I do have a shot somewhere of it lit up at night. It's kind of interesting. I think there's, no, just the one shot here. But again, if you zoom in on it, I've got another shot of people out there working on it and maintaining it. You know, so you got these, you know, tiny little churches and things, and these giant guys that look like Gulliver out walking across it. But these are actually live plants that they put on, you know, throughout it. So I don't know if the guys in my shot were gardening it or whatever, but kind of a very very involved model of Belgium. And more international. Oh, here's the walkway, and here's the model down below. So again, as Randy mentioned earlier, all the columns are holding up. So you can see here the support. And again, you're trying to show off engineering and what you can do with cantilevered structures, so much the better. And then in the background, you can see more signage over here. I'm not sure what urban is. What's that about?
It must be like urban planning or something.
Yeah.
Yes, urbanisme is city planning.
Okay.
In French.
Great. Thank you. This is kind of interesting. This was a spiral. It showed up in one picture before at night, all lit up, and it's just lights going around and around and around all the way up to the top. But kind of an interesting look going up.
It was part of an industrial pavilion, but I can't remember which one.
All right, I think we got time for one more set or so. We'll see. Nice garden trellis area out here. And Jacques, whoever he is, he had his name really big here, but.
And FAF is a sewing machine company. PFAFF, I don't know how they pronounce it, but you can see there's a little sewing machine logo next to the word.
Right.
Yeah.
And the staircase going down, here's the motorized driveway up here, and then down below the area here, more of the signage. Down below a souvenir stand, you could get all your, you know, keychains and tchotchkes or whatever to bring back from the USSR. And this is inside the USA again. Thailand. These are going to take a lot of work. They were really dark at night or late in the afternoon. But I love a challenge. So you talk about crowds. Well, here's all the people waiting to get in and see the United States. And what are they waiting to see at the United States? It's pretty much Circle-rama or Circle Vision. So, but that's a pretty good line of people waiting to get in there. I mean, you wonder where it starts, you wonder where it ends, but that's a lot of people.
You know, and the U.S. was praised for building that plaza with the fountain, because if the U.S. hadn't done that, it would have been, let's say if the U.S. building had just been moved forward and this plaza not built, the U.S., France, and the USSR would have just been jammed right up against each other. The fair planners did not allow for that, but the U.S. in building this fountain and this plaza did.
Yeah, it gives a much more open feeling, doesn't it?
Well, and plus you could stand back and get pictures of, you know, the three pavilions without being right on top of them.
Fountains are off today for whatever reason, but here is the grill work that Randy mentioned earlier. Anybody want a nice bratwurst? We're back to the beer tent. You know, I'm glad he got the sign. I wish they had gotten the lion a little bit more, but what the heck. So we at least know what they were serving that particular day. All of a sudden, I want some bratwurst and sauerkraut.
Actually sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds real good today.
And a good tall beer.
Yeah.
Might have been a ginger ale.
Yeah. Now you wonder, was it raining or the fountains just going in the wind? But obviously a very wet day right here. Is this one of the older halls that you mentioned, Randy?
Yeah, yeah. I can't. Can you zoom in? Maybe we can see what that sign says.
No.
Amphitheater. Yeah, that was an amphitheater.
Auditorium, yeah.
Or auditorium, yeah, right.
Right.
Then on the opposite side of it, behind us was, yeah, it would have been behind us, you know, if we were standing.
Right.
Was the art pavilion. Look how well they're all so well dressed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gas. That was the gas.
This
Yeah.
is GAZ. You know, it's really interesting. If you're a fan of the old TV series Mission Impossible, they always had all these foreign signs, and they talk about whatever his name was, Bruce, the guy that was in charge of the show. He had invented his whole own foreign language so that they would go to some place and they'd have the GAZ pavilion. But he made up all total signs of the stuff that made no sense for all of the communist nations and everywhere they were going. And I saw that. I just keep thinking of Mission Impossible.
Was that Bruce Geller?
Bruce Geller, right? Yeah,
right.
yeah. They would show up in a truck with gas on the side, and you know they'd all jump out. But yeah, because some of the words made no sense whatsoever, and people said, "What does that mean?" And it's basically whatever I wanted it to be.
It reminded me of going shopping at IKEA.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Need
had
Superman decoder ring.
When I was still flying, I had, and I didn't know his name at the time, Bruce Geller, but also I had, oh shoot, what is the composer who composed the theme song?
Oh, Lalo Schifrin.
Yeah. They were traveling together on a flight, and I recognized Schifrin's name, and he was very old at the time, and Geller was with him, and I didn't recognize Geller's name, but I immediately recognized Schifrin's name. So I talked to him forever because he wrote so many.
Oh yeah.
Theme songs that we all, you know, can sing, you know, or hum it, you know, they were so familiar to us.
Yeah, I mean, you hear the first two notes of that song, you know what's coming, you know? I mean, looks like they had some boats on display at the British Industry Pavilion.
Yeah, that was, that little lagoon was between the two.
Right. And you can look over here and you can say, looks like Mercedes was giving the rides around. What's interesting is you wonder when this picture actually was taken, because look at these guys up here. It looks like the thing is still being built.
Yeah, my guess is, you know, as with so many souvenirs, slides and postcards, they're taken, you know, during like press previews or, you know, and the crowds would be like non-existent.
Right. Germany. And again, a nice view of the signage here. Czechoslovakia. Yeah, these are probably during preview days or something along that line.
Yeah, because the R in France looks like it's missing
the cover on it.
Yeah.
And if you also look down here, there's a giant pile of dirt.
Right. Well, remember, like I said earlier, France opened about a month late.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So yep, the letter's not finished up there, and like I said, they're still doing their gardening or whatever there. So looks like wheelbarrows and stuff. So Yeah, so that's interesting. Again, I took pictures. Some of these were amateur slides, and then you get down into the ones that were done here, there were souvenir ones. And if we zoom in on them further, you can see, different companies did them. But yeah, the France one, again, it looks like construction. So at
Those are
least
weird mounts. I wonder what those.
these little
circles
dimples.
count.
Yeah, basically, I think they were supposed to hold the images in along the edge, that they're
Oh.
just pressing on it. So what again, get a kick out of these are made in England, so when you look on the other side, sometimes they have the if it's cut a color, they spell out color in the British way too. So, but made in England, and these guys, I guess, were from Germany. So.
Hans Hart's.
Yeah.
Hans Hart's Hamburg. Say that 10 times fast.
I think I'll just let you do that for me.
Look at the logo for HHH.
Yeah. And then sometimes we have shots of Brussels itself, which makes sense. If you're going to go over there, you want to get shots of the town. So for those of us that have been to Brussels, I thought you might just like to see how it looked back in 1958.
Bill,
Yeah.
I think that white building was used in one of the James Bond movies.
Really? Was it?
Yeah, with Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, okay. It's funny, it's amazing how you can see something and sometimes and it just triggers a whole different memory of something else, So some of these places have not changed a tremendous amount in time. And this one's kind of interesting because it's probably from where they're staying in their hotel. But if you look way in the background, there's the atomium. So rising up on the horizon there.
It shows that it's a pretty good sized structure,
Yeah, it shows it's pretty good size. And then if we zoom in a little bit on it, there's our archway in front of the 35 building. So
and on the right side of that slide, it looks like there's
I'm sorry, I closed that accidentally. Hang on, let me go back to that 1 second here. I was trying to move the cursor and I managed to kill it. What are we doing here? Come on, open up. The slide viewing program appears to be fighting me. Hang on. It's trying to catalog all the images, which is not what I want you to do. Cancel, close. I'll get there. Hang on. We'll try this again. Okay, and we'll go back to share screen again. I see we're going to have to fire the tech crew. They're just not capable of doing what they're supposed to do. I'm going to have Carol come in here and give me a lesson on how to do this right.
Yeah, so there's like those spires that is part of that Royal Palace complex. So between it and the atomium, that was the land that was used to build the international pavilions in 1958, and had huge restrictions on changing the topography or removing any large trees.
Right. More pictures just of Belgium, and then we get to one of the entrances. So this is kind of interesting. Entree of the N Gang, and again, here's the ticket booths. I don't know which particular area this is, but again, here's the symbol that they use throughout Expo. They had both the globe here with the 58 in it, and then they use the star symbol quite a bit. So it shows up on the maps and the guidebooks and that sort of thing.
The Belgian town hall in the middle.
Yeah, and then we have the official time clocks, just like we had the Swiss time clocks at the 64 fair. They had their clocks around. What I was trying to figure out is what this little antenna is here, if it's their way of keeping the clocks synchronized. In 64, they were done by a telephone cable because my Uncle Bill put them in. But I found that the clocks here had this little antenna on it, so it's just kind of neat. And if you zoom in a little bit more, you can see the IBM. So
IBM had a pavilion at the fair.
Yeah. But I mean, again, a little modernistic looking little antenna, and it was probably to keep them all in sync. And there's another one. Yeah, well, it could be the same one, who knows? But again, and here's where Randy mentioned the stuff in the background that they had to, keep and maintain. Not far away at all from the end of the Skyway station where it came over here to the international area.
And Bill, that clock antenna looks suspiciously decorative to me.
Yes. Yeah, it does, with a little dipole or whatever on it. But who knows what system they worked. And there's a set of initials on here. Let me zoom in that. I'm not quite sure what this was here, MBLE. But yeah, who knows if that part was working and this was just looks, but it's kind of cool. The weather looks nicer. The people don't have their heavy coats on. The flowers have come out.
I'll go back, Bill, if you go back to just that previous one. Okay, that, I think the building kind of dead center, just to the right of the, yeah. I think that's where the sky ride, I could be wrong.
Yeah,
the
that's part of
sky
the
ride
sky
also
ride.
went off to the right of the slide somewhere, somehow, to go through the international section.
Yeah, if this wasn't quite blurry, but I have others to match. This says Telelift on it. So this is Skyway Station. And you can see right here one of the buses just coming out of the station.
So that is probably going to the right in the picture.
Yes, it goes to the right.
Right.
You
Okay.
just see some of the tower and stuff. But yeah, here's the bucket. He's coming out and he's going that way.
I don't know if you could board it and it went, because if you notice the avenue that runs under the Atomium, there are gondolas on both sides.
Right.
So I don't know if you ran down one side, made a loop, came back, and then
I think he got off and then you had to pay to come back the other way.
Okay.
Yeah, just like in New York.
Yeah, okay.
Again, you can see where the Congo is. Very, very eye-catching. Whoever did it was very smart. I mean, that logo, that design shows up for quite a distance.
Oh, I don't know what that one is.
And here's the Skyway again.
I don't think I've ever seen the building that was in that one there. Can you zoom in?
Can't quite make out what it is. We'll figure it out with a map.
Yeah.
This one attracted a lot of interest. It shows up in so many pictures. This is from the overhead walkway looking down. France over here on the side.
I believe that's Austin. Oh no, that's City of Paris on the right.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember if it was, this is Turkey or Pakistan. It's one of those in the background.
I think it's Turkey. Yeah.
Not sure where this is. Same pavilion here, looking the other way.
That's Austria through the that's Austria.
The arches?
To the left.
Over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here's the map again, which is kind of interesting. So
oh, it gives you the scale. Okay.
Yeah. 1 to 3,500. So what's interesting, in the days of anybody notice anything interesting here?
No railing.
No railing. Yeah, I thought exactly that. I wonder how many people at night just stepped off and fell into Belgium face planted or something. But there's no railing at all anywhere along it, and you have the nice benches to sit at and everything. But it just kept thinking at night, or as people are imbibing or whatever. My God, what a safety hazard! I could just imagine falling off and impaling yourself on a church. So. And so it's the extra theme park person in me looking at it and just cringing and also in today's world, how many people just jump down and take home a church,
Yeah. Bill, because even at Expo 92 in Seville, it was kind of built around five avenues. One of the avenues had a lot of water features.
Mhm.
And there was no, we saw it happen. People walked right into the water.
Yeah.
And the water was only like 5 inches deep, but there was nothing to prevent you from doing it. No, not even, they didn't even like put, if I remember correctly, the flooring was like a tile or something. They didn't even like change the color of the tile at the edge to call your attention to the fact you're walking into the water. And I know my friend Brian and I, went with me. We were just like, that would never go over in the U.S. There would be like a Jacoby and Myers booth at the end of the boulevard.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys in the rest of the country have Jacoby and Myers, but they're on TV here in LA every 17 seconds. You have an accident, call Jacoby and Myers. Call Sweet James. Call, I mean, we have all these legal companies. I mean, the ads at night are insane.
They're in New York also.
What's that?
They're in New York also, and they're
sure,
suing each other.
Yeah, well, Morgan and Morgan. This
There was
one here,
the
by
one
the
that
way,
used to have, it was a black guy who had been injured in a motorcycle and he got 2.5 million.
yeah,
And supposedly you only saw the black guy from the waist up. Supposedly like he lost both of his legs and all that, but they wanted to make look like he had minimal injuries and still
yeah.
got 2.5 million.
Yeah, he bumped his elbow and he got $2.5 million.
Yeah, exactly.
This one you can see gardeners out here maintaining the grounds. So there's 3 guys bent over here, picking weeds or replanting stuff out here in the middle of the map. So unlike in New York where they had Oklahoma had a giant map of Oklahoma, that was pretty much a plastic map. This one they went with, I don't know if they're bonsai plants or something else or whatever they did it. But this
is very reminiscent of Disneyland, the storybook.
Yes, storybook land, yeah. So here they are taking care of it, and we zoom in here. Looks like he's got wooden shoes or something. I don't know if they're protects things or whatever, but he's, they're gives you an idea of the scale of how big they are. Joey would probably like this because he'd put a gorilla out there and they'd pretend it was Tokyo and Godzilla or something. But
Bill, you read my mind. I was just gonna say that.
And then they had signage out here to tell you around, again, what particular areas you're looking at. So very, very ambitious thing. And I gathered this lasted for a number of years after Expo 58 was gone. I don't think it's still there, Randy. Do you know?
No, I know the building did for sure. You knew Ed Orth or knew of him, and he mentioned it several times that the building existed.
Right.
But I'm not sure if the garden was maintained. It probably was, but
yeah, I believe the city maintained it for a number of years and then finally gave up on it. You can imagine things wore off, and just look how many guys it takes to maintain it. But I understood that it lasted for a number of years, and finally budget cuts, it was gone.
So what's on the fairgrounds today?
Mostly just a city park.
Yeah, it's a large park, I believe. In the area, we'd have to go back and look at the size, but the building that had the arch put in front of it to modernize it. There's a big modern convention center built there. That was built probably, I'm going to guess, in the 70s or 80s.
Hopping around the grounds here. Sputnik. I don't know what that is. Some sea creature in a giant bubble, it looks like.
I hope it's not alive. Had to sit in that thing for.
Hope not, for its sake.
6 months.
And some modern art along the support structures. You can see right here the skyway going through the area, coming up and then going, you know, underneath the archway.
Yeah, I think it was, the Skyway was seen more like, let's say the mini rail was seen at Expo 67, because it was not a very high structure. You can see there, there are some parts where it almost looks like people could reach up and touch it.
Yeah,
you know, the bottom of the gondola.
High
So I think it was
all.
considered more of a transportation system to get you around the grounds than a, you know, because you didn't have a high angle of view.
No. Here's the grill work mentioned around the pavilion. Vatican Pavilion. They had a carillon system. And you can tell you're at a World's Fair because people are resting their feet in a fountain. You know, I mean, that's pretty much at every World's Fair that I can think of. That you can find people doing this and just wow, just relaxing for the end of the day. US at night. Again, here's the ramp I mentioned. They'd come down and give the fashion shows on.
Yeah, and that wall, that cinder block wall, garnered a lot of criticism.
Okay, thanks. Carol says my network bandwidth is low. I don't know why. Is anybody else seeing that message?
No.
No, must be on your side then.
Well, I don't know. Everybody else is okay.
Yeah. And back down to downtown, beautiful downtown Brussels. Been a long time since I've been to Brussels. I have to find
it. I've never been. I've been all over Europe, but I've never been there.
Take one last shot here. Again, modern sculpture. I think this was actually outside the grounds.
That is one of the things that designated a gate.
Yeah.
Bill, I've got something to show about the Soviet pavilion.
All right. Well, with that, why don't we stop here? And Wayne, you'd like to show us something? I can make you co-host here. 1 second. So entice us, show us something fun.
The Soviets actually had a colored TV demo. The thing that's funny to me is, you know, during the Cold War era, there were lots of jokes being told in the US about we in Russia invented it first. And of course, they didn't invent colored TV, but the equipment they showed was definitely of clones of RCA gear. The camera is exactly the same configuration as those in the US. And it's also doubtful that the Soviets had a color picture tube plant at the time. But the double twist on this is that a lot of the early television work done by RCA that was shown at the 39 fair was done by a Russian immigrant to the US. So they might have a bit of a claim of Russia invented it.
That's fun. Yeah, Carol had to drop off, but she would have looked at this and said, oh, anybody notice anything wrong in this? Color demonstration, demon station.
Demon station.
They're turning them all into demons. Yeah, that's interesting. The Soviets love to clone things. Oh, Carol, Wayne, put that back up. Carol came back. Put that up 1 second. I was thinking of you as soon as I saw this picture, Carol. What do you notice about it? Oh, you're muted.
Carol, read the text.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went out to get the mail, but I would have noticed it probably, but not necessarily.
Yeah. So, but no, as soon as I saw that and Carol had stepped out, I mentioned you had stepped out. I said, "Oh, Carol would jump right on this," and I could hear you down the hall saying it, but Nat, you were muted. So yeah, she picked up on it right away. So, Color Demon Station. When when we're watching TV, Carol can pick up. They always have the color. The crayons, the text or whatever. Bam, she can pick up on it left and right. And we went years ago to see the movie Outland with Sean Connery, and the very first title comes up on the screen, and they misspelled the principal export of they were exporting whatever they were doing, iron, the principal export, and they used the wrong version of principal. And Carol's not a science fiction fan. She was seeing the movie just to honor me. So, or humor me. So just as soon as it came up, she pointed out, and the rest of the movie, I think she was looking for other things. But we actually wrote to the movie studio and said, I don't know if you realize what you did. And they wrote back and said, okay, sorry. When it came out on video, they fixed it. So, and she's other things too. Channel 4 for a while was spelling something wrong, and Carol sent him something else. They fixed it. So I joke all the time. I don't even joke about it. I say all the time, she is the best proofreader in the world. She proofreads all my books and turns my garbage into English. So, and she's proofread a number of books for other people and stuff. So if you ever know anybody that has a printing or a project coming along and you need a set of independent eyes and proofreader, and she's really helped me a lot, because you write a book over, say, 4 months and you don't realize how often you use the same sentence. You say, and a fascinating look at so and such, this fascinating view of so and such, goes, you really like the word fascinating. Okay. And this different look at, it's, so I give Carol, I like to give her a shout out for her.
Thank you.
Carol, were you an English major or?
Not really. Well, I was a theater arts major, so I guess it kind of ties in. But I grew up with two parents who spoke English as their second language, and they were really sticklers for English. And I think that's what had to do with it.
If you ever watch I Love Lucy, obviously in reruns,
right?
At the end, in the closing credits, the cast's name are all spelled correctly, including Desi Arnaz, Desiarnaz. Later on in the credits, they mentioned the Desi Arnaz Orchestra, and Desi is spelled Dezi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and not in all of them. It's certain seasons. Yeah.
Well, that kind of thing, it just kind of pops out at me. I don't know. It's not like I'm looking for it all the time, but.
Yeah, I was a journalism major, and I'm not good at this. I often overlook my own spelling errors, but then if you misspelled one word in an assignment, you failed the assignment.
Oh,
so
well, you should be able to. I mean, it used to be that English was used properly. It isn't that way anymore now.
No, yeah, definitely.
What's amazing?
I don't know how other people feel about proofreading, but after all my years on standards committees, it's a bit of a curse, because I absolutely every time pick up errors using which versus that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy, and I wish that I didn't see it.
Yeah. And on Facebook, you don't dare mention it, because then you're called a what do you call it? A grammar Nazi or police, spelling police or whatever.
Well, I did teach English for a while, I guess, and I had to do a unit that distinguished between its and its.
Oh boy.
Which the kids just couldn't understand. I don't understand. And there, things like that you should just look at it and know what's correct and what's not. but I don't think that's the future of our country. So
No, well, and especially with, with kids texting now, because they, now they spell you are.
Yeah.
yes, right. It's changed a lot.
My niece is a teacher and she sees it, I mean, in a composition, they'll spell it as if they're texting it.
Well, I remember Carol coming home from work one day very frustrated because they were trying to teach the kids how to like print or something. And they were telling them, don't worry about the spelling, get the thought out. And that's a great idea, except if they put down UR instead of YOUR, whatever. Now they think that's okay. So Carol was saying, at what point do you correct them? You don't want to stifle their creative juices, but you also want to implant that ITZ is how you spell it's, or whatever. So it was the whole, I mean, when I grew up, if you misspelled it, you got a ruler across your knuckles. That's probably the wrong way to do it. But also just letting kids spell anything any way they want is also, to me, not the right way. So Carol had to get into that sort of mind thing about how do you get them going the right way without making them feel bad, sort of thing. So
and there's the whole thing with cursive now, not teaching cursive. So.
yeah.
Okay, any of you who know cursive, the National Archives is looking for you.
Yeah.
They have a project, it's a citizen science thing for people to transcribe documents written in cursive.
Really?
And go to their website and sign up, and they say you can do it from home. So
it's the National Archives?
Brett, can you
National
put a
Archives.
link up?
Pardon?
Do you have a link?
I don't right now, but let me.
Google will bring it up.
No, I saved it. I saved it. Let me go into my file structure.
I would love to do that.
Well, I try to read old passenger ship and things from when Carol's parents came over and we got all that. You go to back when my family came to the country. I can barely read some of the the lettering and everything that did back from the 1800s.
Well, what does congress mean?
What's that?
What is, oh, I'm sorry. What does congress mean?
Yeah,
think about some of the founding documents.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but this Congress was supposed to help us with the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, Beth has put. Let me just look through the chat stuff here.
When I was a kid, I had my cursive writing looked like an adult female's writing. So I was always chosen to do things like address the Christmas cards that the school district sent out, in my cursive, female-looking cursive handwriting. But it also saved me from like being beaten up by the thugs at school, because I was also known to, and I got caught once doing it, writing excuse notes for absences. They were really, they just skipped school and they come to me and say, would you write me a note from my mother, Elaine Souza, and I would write. I got caught once doing it.
That's how you paid your way through school. You paid your way through school.
Yeah, and of course college. 4 years of college note taking took care of my beautiful cursive handwriting. But
when I
posted a link to archives in the chat.
Oh, thank
you, Brett.
I used to have very nice printing when I worked at ABC, and one of my jobs was labeling videotapes, right? Carol can tell you now, doctors can't read my writing. It's just disintegrated so over time. But I've seen all sorts of things. If you want to send a message in code so your teenagers can't read it, just put it in cursive.
Right, in cursive.
Do you know that who writes the best, or at least prints, is architects?
Oh yeah.
So,
well, Randy, I wonder if I can ask you a favor. My daughter needs a note for Tuesday. She wants one extra day out of it. She's got to do some stuff. So if you could write her a note, send it to my electronic mail. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I got this call. We're in the middle. I remember we're in the middle of algebra 2, and Mr. Felice. I'll never forget this. I had never gotten in trouble at school ever. Mr. Felice says, "You're wanted in the principal's office." I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" So I go in, and he's telling me this. And at first, I'm like, I didn't know what he was. alluding to? Then he pulled out the note. Like, is this your handwriting? And it's, oh God, I got caught.
Well, that became a running gag on Welcome Back, Kotter, where
Yes,
one guy would bring him
Epstein's mother.
Epstein's mother.
Oh, really? I didn't watch that show that much.
Oh, I didn't watch it much either. I hated it because of the name, but I know it was a joke, and it shows up on things like, please excuse, whatever his first name was, Juan, from doing his homework. He wasn't feeling well. Signed, Epstein's mother.
Epstein's mother.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, but he spelled Cotter with a K, not a C.
Yeah.
Use a K.
That show is actually the opening credits. Down the road from that school was John Dewey High School, where I went for a year. And that school you see is actually an elementary school, not a high school.
Well, that show drove my mother into early retirement because she was a teacher, and every year new kids would come in and goes, "Hi, my name is Mrs. Cotter." Ooh, Mrs. Cotter. The sweat hog crap. She's a typing teacher. She didn't need that stuff, but
So you
I
didn't like that TV show.
Yeah, I remember
You
one
didn't
time
like
I
the
was
show because of
flying.
the title?
I was going from here to, I'm trying to remember where it was. I was going from here to San Francisco to Tokyo, and I get up to San Francisco, and there's no, they can't find me on the next plane. And I go, I made the reservation, and they're looking, and I finally said, "Is that under KOTT?" And there it was. Somehow somebody in reservations had corrected my name for me. But it's and you have to think about how many times I meet somebody new and they all think for the first time that they're the first ones mentioning that show to me. And I'll just say, I don't know what show you're talking about. I've never heard of it. Well, the one with Gabe Kaplan. Oh, is that a TV show? Is it on now? What now? I just go as far down as I can. No, I've never heard. I have no idea what you're talking about. You must know it.
The only thing I really remember about that song, and because I still like it, is the theme song.
Yeah, Welcome Back.
Yeah.
What was Cotter's first name on that show?
I don't know. Beats me. Never.
Bill.
What?
Was it Bill?
What
was his first name?
It's probably Will. No. So next week, I think I'm going to be doing publicity photos from the 1964 World's Fair. I bought a huge collection of those, and again, some of them are really unique because they were able to get in the spots that the average photographer can't. Also, in case you're interested and want to put it on your calendar, I'm going to be doing a 3-part series on the Adventure Club on Expo 67. And the first one will be on January 30th at 5 p.m. California time. And we're going to, over the 3 weeks, look at the building of Expo 67. I'm going to go through each of the pavilions on each of the islands, and then a quick look at the changes over the years for the Man and His World permutations. So again, if you're interested, the Explorer Club, I'll put it in next week's invite to go out. But I'm looking forward to that because every time you do a talk and you finish, oh, here's some more pictures, and what could I do with this one? So I've been going and doing a ton of Expo 67 pictures lately, getting ready for this, and it's always fun to again. I'll never get through all the ones I have, but it's like I said with these, I scanned some of these 17 years ago, and I had no reason to go back to them until today. Now I'm going back to the Expo 67 ones I scanned 12 years ago or so, and going back into it and thinking, oh, I wish I had this when I did the book. Oh, wish I had that when I did the book. So, but again, if you're interested, what's that?
You find all these on eBay, Bill?
Quite a few of them, and I also have standing searches for several auction houses and everything. So, it's really interesting. Every now and then it comes up where somebody says, "I have these and I don't want them. Do you?" Matter of fact, I got a box last week that came in. I said, "What?" I wasn't expecting this, and I opened it up, and it's some really, really neat stuff of old postcards and stuff from various places, including the 33 World's Fair, but also some other stuff. And it was there's one guy, I have to remember to send him a note. He works at a library, and people come in and they donate a whole bunch of stuff to the library. and the library can't do anything with it. So he said when he finds the World's Fair stuff, he sends it to me, and very, very much appreciated. Stuff that I have never seen before because it just doesn't show up. I mean, here in California, we don't have basements, we don't have attics. People don't have the same stuff hoarded away that they do on the East Coast. So every now and then, matter of fact, Richard would appreciate this. I got a big box from Dick Horn last week of world's stuff from the Onteora and Woepex going back to the early days. But the woman's husband worked at the '64 World's Fair and had an album this thick of the Boy Scout exhibit and the troops that came in and stuff like that. So I'm looking to do that. So every now and then I do get a very nice, much well appreciated gift, which is a hint. Send me all your stuff. I want it. No. But a lot of it is eBay, and Rita, our mail lady, just keeps bringing more of it to the door. So, I don't know where we'll all go, what we'll do with it, but like I said, I have fun with it, and I appreciate having you folks be able to share it with. It does no good to me just having it stacked in boxes. So again, just wanted to mention the Expo 67. I will plug it mercilessly next week or whatever. But if you're an Expo 67 fan, I hope to make it worth your while. So with that, I hope it's not too cold back east. I hear horrible. Are you still having lots of ice and everything, Beth?
No, it warmed up, but we're supposed to get some colder weather this coming week. So we'll see what happens.
Great.
It's 40 today in New York. It was in the 20s and 30s.
Oh, we were 40
the last 3 weeks
here. 42.
Yeah, right now I'm in the Charlotte area and it's 53 degrees here and sunny, but it's supposed to turn really cold tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and by the way, Richard, I don't know if you've heard this year's Onteora reunion is actually going to be at Woepex.
Oh, really? That's certainly changed.
Yeah, we have 2 Boy Scout camps, one on Long Island, one up in the Catskills. And the one in the Catskills is where our reunions are every year. We go up, have a great time. But there's a water tank which was built when the camp was open 60 years ago, and the water tank it leaks more than it holds water right now. I mean, it's become very porous over the years. So the big plan at the end of the summer camp season is to close the water system down. It's a big tank. It's like you'd see for a municipality. It's a giant water tank. But they have to replace that, and there was no guarantee that we would have water running for the reunion. So we decided we would move the reunion down to Shift and then hold it for the same 3 days. And I'm going to put the date on my website soon. So it will be. We think a lot of people that would not go up to Onteora would go up, go out to Shift because you can drive out for the day and not have to spend overnight or whatever. So. Hope to see you 2 guys out there for our former scout race.
I may come out to that one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have the dining halls all have 2 brand new spanking new kitchens in them and everything. And
well, it's a shame how they got them built because the fire.
Yeah. One of them burned down, and they totally rebuilt the building. But
it took forever.
Our guys that do our risk management are really good because they had business continuity insurance on the building, and they were able to convince the building, the insurance company, that we have to be able to keep the camp going. And the other dining hall, we had 1 working kitchen and 1 non-working kitchen. Well, the working kitchen burned down, so we were able to convince them while we're rebuilding the building with the working kitchen, we need to rebuild the non-working kitchen in the existing building, and they paid for it. So now we have 2 really nice state-of-the-art kitchens and
No, the rebuilt kitchen's in a different building, Bill.
Yeah, well, the new building has the new kitchen in it, but we put a new kitchen in the old dining hall that didn't burn down.
Right.
So they paid for 2 kitchens.
Right.
So we got 2 kitchens out of it. So
right.
Yeah. So
when they had the fire, my son was in the Boy Scout troop that when they just reopened the second kitchen, and there were still issues going on, and you couldn't get anywhere near the first kitchen from the fire. They basically had that so cordoned off. They didn't want anyone near that. They were afraid someone would get hurt.
Yeah, they were
But
also
the only good thing that came out was they got 2 kitchens for the price of 1.
Yeah, they also kept everybody away from it because they were doing quite the arson investigation for quite a period
Yes.
of time. And they finally
They-
determined it was an electrical fault with it, I mean, the building's 70 years old or something and something arced on it. But you can imagine the insurance company certainly wanted to make sure we hadn't set fire to our own building, but also the fire department. And then they want to make sure, because the camp is accessible to the public, it shouldn't be, but they come onto the property. They want to make sure it hadn't been vandalized, vandalism or crime. So,
Well, they'd sold off part of the property years ago and built all those houses in the back, which
yeah,
was a terrible shame that they had to do that.
yeah.
It's
So,
nothing like it used to be.
yeah, no, the camp's a lot smaller than it was, but yeah. So anyway, if you're on Long Island, or that area, it's I think the second week of September. I'll confirm the exact dates, but we're looking forward to it. And like I said, it's weird to have the Ontario Scout Camp reunion at a different Boy Scout camp, but we're doing it for a reason. We just didn't want to have people making plane reservations, flying back east, getting back there and saying, oh, and make sure you bring a bottle of water with you. So
When will the repairs be started up at Onteora?
the week summer camp ends, and it actually might start early. What they've done, and I just found out on Thursday, they've actually come up with a plan B, is that as people may know, you have a very, very limited building period between the time summer camp ends and the ground freezes over. So what they're actually going to do is build the new water tower next to the old water tower, and then destroy the old. The old one will fall down by itself probably. When I was a scout there, kids would throw rocks at it to make the noise, and the people camping near there didn't like it. So we told all the kids, don't throw it. It creates rust in the water. Well, now you can probably go right through it. But yeah, they're going to build a new water tower, basically same size and everything next to it. What the big issue is, they're not sure about the water line that goes all the way down to the wells at the lake, how much that needs replacing. So they were like, well, we think we can have water for you, but we're not so sure. We just decided it was easier to do it. Plus, Ship or Woollypex is a great camp on its own, and it's got, for our reunion purposes, it has a lot more sleeping capabilities, with cabins and lean-tos and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Carol and I will go, and I think we'll probably find out how nice the Hampton is nearby, but she's not a great camper, so we'll go do that. But yeah, it's for folks on Long Island, start talking up with your friends and former hikers and troopers and scouters, and get them to come back. Even if they don't want to come and stay overnight, they can come out for the day. And we're going to have Steve Scholl prime rib dinner, and it will be great fun.
Bill, do you know Leanne?
What's
Belmont?
that?
Do you know Leanne Belmont?
Oh yeah.
Did you hear her mother passed away?
Yeah, her mother passed away. I think she was 99, something like that.
99 and a half.
Yeah, it was a shame. Leanne was the registrar of the Alumni Association for years, and she lives up in the Finger Lakes and would go down to Long Island every other week to help take care of her mom. So she really did yeoman's duties of going down. So yeah, it was a shame, to get the news, but 99 and a half is a hell of a run.
Yes. And a lovely lady, I was told. I've never met. I'm sorry, I never met her.
No, I just heard a lot of stories about her from Leanne on the weekends, and that Carol and Leanne would sit together at the reunions and do all the registration and getting everybody signed in, making sure their insurance forms were signed, and that sort of stuff. So Carol and Leanne spent a bunch of time together over the years. Well, that's it for today. I appreciate it. And again, next week, black and white publicity photos and pictures, and maybe we can put names to some of these people. But there's also all sorts of pictures of all sorts of governors of states and past getting medals or signing proclamations or turning shovels of dirt and doing all sorts of public official PR type stuff. So some of the pictures are actually kind of neat. I mean, I got a real a lot of them came from the personal collection of Michael Pender, who is the guy in charge of the state exhibits, and he's in a whole bunch of them, giving out medals and stuff like that. but then there'll be Miss Oklahoma and Miss Florida and you know, they brought in all the bathing beauties and queens, and there's all sorts of pavilions being built, and it's great fun. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.
Thanks, Bill.
Right, bye.